Hawaii. This is Pokalaing Nui, and you are listening to Hawaiian Potpourri. Welcome to the program. If you would like to call and share an opinion on some of our topics of discussion, the telephone number here is 524-1080. We'll put you on the radio and see what you have to say, give you an opportunity to share in this conversation or get something off your chest that you've been wanting to talk about. 524-1080. Let's go to our telephone. Aloha caller, welcome to the program.
Oh yes, you were talking about Republican Party, but everybody's talking about the DNC, what happened during the week.
Mm-hmm.
When they were saying A's and nays and like no, there was no no's and A's, and yet the guy still say, okay, the ayes have it and the format has been changed. Everybody booed. To put God back in the format. But some people saying they were booing God, but the thing is, they were not booing God. They were booing the decision. Like, hey, wait a minute. The majority say no. What's this? Putting the stuff back on.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't catch that part of, and I haven't been all that faithful in watching.
They went and changed the format. Well, they had the one to take the format with God in Jerusalem, not to be mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then they found then that was like the Republicans jumped on that. Oh, see, they don't like God, they don't like Jerusalem, right? So then they decided to change the thing back. But when they were, they brought it up for a vote, it's supposed to be 2/3 of the, committee supposed to say yes,
I see. And
but it wasn't that. There were more no's than yays. But somebody they mentioned, well, that's the Chicago way. You could vote on it, but it's still going to be the way we say it. That's how the media took it. Okay, I got to get going. Bye.
All right, thank you for your call. Aloha. All right, if any of you have, I guess, some additional clarity to that subject, I'm sorry I missed that part of the discussion in the Democratic National Convention. I did hear that there was an attempt to place Jerusalem as the center of government for Israel, and it may be sort of a nod to the Jewish or IPEC lobbying group, a Jewish lobbying group, and sort of appeasing that area. I was in a discussion with two friends this afternoon, having lunch and talking about politics and the direction of politics. And what we shared was that we are, or at least I am, quite disappointed with the positions taken by Barack Obama with regards to his war efforts, the national policy or the international policy with regards to Iran, the saber rattling that is going on, the kissing up to Israel, and some of the human rights programs, the failure of what was his name, Holder, to prosecute for the war crimes of those in the George Bush era, the CIA agents and the rest. But notwithstanding my disappointment and my lack of favor to those policies, in the long run, the question then becomes, well, what are the choices that you have? You have a Mitt Romney who would go even further in that awful direction than Barack Obama. And so in terms of, I guess, practical politics, it's not a question of liking one and not liking the other, but it's always in terms of degrees. I heard a speech made by, I thought his name was Christie. He had been a governor of Florida, a Republican governor, and he gave a speech at the Democratic National Convention on why he has left. And actually he said, I didn't leave the Republican Party. The Republican Party left me, because they have gone so extremely to the right that I, who had been a lifetime member of the party, cannot align myself with the party. And during this period of time, I have gotten to know Barack Obama more closely, and I must say that I support his candidacy. But what he said also was, let us be clear, I do not support everything that Obama has done or stand for, but I certainly support him and am more aligned to him in as compared to Mitt Romney. A very practical political approach. And if we are waiting for the candidate who will represent us on all things, and if there is disagreement on one point, but agreement on all the other points, we still are adamant that we will not support, I don't think that's the appropriate, reasonable, or wise approach that one should take in terms of politics. Because then you lose out anyway. You don't support the guy who you would more closely align with, and as a result, you get wiped out on all of the points. You have another person elected who is even farther to your, what is the word for it? Your nemesis. That you don't like this guy, even worse. But at that point, as we say, no can squawk. There's nothing to squawk about. You can't grumble anymore because you had not actively participated. So that as an excuse for not participating, I don't think is a wise basis for lack of participation. Okay. All right, if you would like to call and share an opinion, our telephone number is 524-1080. I came across an article. It says, Advantage Obama as election begins in earnest. Jim Loeb writes out of the Washington, D.C. Dateline, September the 8th, today. And this is part of the Interpress service. And he says, with their respective party nomination conventions behind them, both President Barack Obama and his Republican challenger, former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney, traveled to the tiny northeastern state of New Hampshire Friday, one of at most a dozen, quote, swing states, whose voters are likely to decide the winners in the November 6th election. Despite persistent high levels of unemployment and some 60% of the electorate telling pollsters that the country is headed, quote, in the wrong direction, most political analysts believe that Obama enters the final 60 days of the race with a leg up over his challenger. The latest Gallup poll, released just hours after Obama's acceptance speech Thursday night at the Democratic Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, another key swing state, showed Obama with a 48 to 45% lead over Romney and with a 52% overall job approval rating, his highest since June 2011, when he was still basking in the afterglow of the successful U.S. commando raid that killed Al-Qaeda's chief, Osama bin Laden, an event to which many speakers referred repeatedly during the proceeding. Gallup suggested in its analysis that Obama appeared likely to benefit from a bigger post-convention bounce in the polls than Romney received after the Republican convention in Tampa, Florida, the week before. Indeed, Romney's bounce coming off the convention was virtually non-existent, according to the polls. Because the president is not elected by the popular vote, however, both political experts and the two campaigns are focused much more on the swing states, those that are considered neither solidly Republican or red nor Democratic blue, that will decide outcome. Instead of a direct popular vote, the president and vice president are actually elected by an electoral college in which each state is allocated a certain number of votes based on their representative in the U.S. Congress. Almost all states use a winner-take-all formula in which whatever candidate wins a majority of the state's vote receives all of that state's electoral votes. To win, a candidate must receive a total of at least 271 electoral votes in the electoral college. Thus, the country's most populous state, California, has 55 electoral votes, all of which will, as appears virtually certain, given California's strong Democratic electorate, be cast in Obama's favor. The second most populous state, Texas, has 38 electoral votes, all of which, given the state's strongly Republican cast, will almost certainly go to Romney. According to most political analysts, including Republicans, Obama enjoys a significant advantage in the electoral contest. Current polling shows Romney and his running mate, Wisconsin Representative Joe Ryan, with a decisive lead in more states, especially in the Midwest and the Southeast, than Obama and Vice President Joe Biden. But the combined electoral votes of those solidly Republican states comes to less than those including California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and Washington state, where the Democratic ticket is considered sure to win. Different analysts disagree on precisely what constitutes a decisive lead. CNN, for example, currently estimates 237 electoral votes are either solidly in or leaning strongly towards Obama's column, compared to 191 in Romney's. Estimates by the Congressional Quarterly a week ago yielded a closer result, 201 to 191. Analysts likewise disagree on how many toss-up or swing states remain. Going into this week's Democratic convention, CNN named 7 states: Florida, Virginia, New Hampshire, Ohio, Iowa, Colorado, and Nevada as true toss-ups. It found 4 other states, North Carolina, Indiana, Missouri, and Arizona, leaning to the Republican ticket, and 4 more, New Mexico, Wisconsin, despite Ryan's candidacy, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, leaning toward Obama. If the leaning states fell into their respective columns, Obama would lead Romney by a 247 to 206 margin and put him within relatively easy striking distance of the magic 271 electoral votes needed to win. The fact that Obama swept all 7 of the remaining toss-up states in 2008 is seen here as making Romney's task considerably more difficult, particularly given the growing vote strength of Latinos, whose appeals for immigration reform were soundly rebuffed at the Republican convention in Nevada and Colorado, and concerns among the substantial numbers of retired and elderly voters in Florida about what the Republicans intend to do about the Social Security and Medicare programs. In addition, the commitment of former President Bill Clinton, the only living national politician with a 70% approval rating, whose rousing nomination speech for Obama Thursday fired up the convention in Charlotte, and drew rave reviews from all but the most right-wing commentators, to play an active role in the campaign, especially in the industrial swing states, can help shore up support for Obama among white male, especially blue-collar voters who, of all demographic groups, are seen as the most susceptible to Romney's appeal. Instead, those who are actually betting money on the race gave Obama much better odds than the polls would suggest. As of Friday, in trade, the main U.S. online betting site is giving Obama a 59% chance of winning, up from a mid-June low of around 54%. The New York Times polling guru, Nate Silver, who pays closest attention to state polling, rates Obama's chances of winning even higher. While Obama will win 51.3% of the popular vote November 6, Silver estimated Friday the electoral margin is likely to be 313 to 225. Based on his statistical method, Silver, the accuracy of whose predictions in the 2008 election persuaded the Times to hire him, is currently estimating Obama's chances of winning at 77.3%. Of course, all of these predictions could still be upset by a number of intervening factors, such as a sharp rise in unemployment, which is still running at more than 8%, or a major international crisis, although Obama appears far more eager to inject foreign policy issues into the campaign than Romney, whose failure to praise the U.S. military in his nomination acceptance speech in Tampa was widely criticized even by fellow Republicans. Given the overriding public concern about the direction of the economy and the fate of the middle class 4 years after the outbreak of the global financial crisis, most other issues except healthcare are likely to be pushed to the margins. Jim Loeb's blog on U.S. foreign policy can be read at www.loeblog.com. Okay, so that's the comments with regards to Obama seems to be having an advantage in the, at least the electoral polling. If you have an opinion on that matter, we have less than 10 minutes more on this program. A number of minutes will be taken up by music playing, but if you would like to call and share an opinion, telephone number here is 524-1080. 524-1080. Give me a call. We'll put you on the radio and see what you have to say about those matters. Okay. I did have the opportunity this morning to review some of the speeches at the Democratic National Convention, and I thought that among the most moving, and of course they all were, the ones that I had seen were moving, but there was I think he was a congressman, I forget his name, but he was one of the original bus riders. There were 13 of them wanting to challenge or see if the law was effectively being enforced throughout the South, and so they took their bus or rode the bus across the various state lines, ate at public facilities, had their shoes shined at public train stations and other things. And so his speech was very effective. If you have the opportunity and if you have a computer, you might want to go in and take a look at some of these speeches. But that was one particular speech I found very moving for me. Okay, now it doesn't seem that we have anyone jumping at or chomping at the telephone lines wanting to call. Tomorrow I will be on the air starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I invite you to tune in, and we'll have another discussion, or maybe reviewing some of the stuff that we talked about this afternoon. I think what we'll do also is go through this envisioning Hawaii for the future and setting out what Michael had talked about once before, a number of programs back, and that is that what is the vision that we would like to create for the future. Oftentimes those visions are set by the candidates for public office or by the politician introducing a bill, and oftentimes they only tap on one or another particular item and it's not publicly discussed. We are sort of being led or dictated to by the proposal being made by an individual. How does a community gather together and share and come to a consensus, and in that way toss into the market of ideas their vision and let those visions become the leading movements towards changing the system, providing new visions for the society, and following with appropriate changes in the law. Not only in terms of the selection of who gets elected, but also in terms of advocating at the legislature, advocating in civic organizations, going to agencies and boards and advocating for those changes. Do we have a cohesive statement of what that vision is? And we'll see if we can discuss that. If you have the opportunity from now to tomorrow morning, you may want to go to my website. That website is www.hawaiianperspectives.org. And as you go into that website, take a look at one particular article that I had written, and it deals with the 2035 edition of the Traveler's Guide to Hawaii. And in that 2035 edition, what I talk about is here's one vision which I align with, and after all, I wrote the paper, which I align with, proposing what Hawaii should look like in 2035. So at least it's a visionary statement. You may agree or disagree with it, but it's a beginning for discussion, and we have to have that discussion. Otherwise, we become led by so many different programs, so many different visions, and we don't have that ability to collect it under something that we have discussed, that we have come to. Instead, we are just knee-jerk reacting to a political statement or one particular program, and we're not seeing the whole thing as a holistic approach towards our movement into our futures. Okay. So with that said, I want to thank all of you for allowing me to be part of your afternoon.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii, Kupa ama hope o ka aina, Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino, Pala pala anunu me ka paka. Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave, Koku ana honoa o Pilani, Ka ko'o mai kaua I o mano, Pa'apu me ke oni o ka kuhi hewa. Aolea e kau I ka pulima, Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi, Ho'ohui ai nā ku ai hewa, I ka pono sivila a o ke kanaka.